Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood and honestly underutilized tools we have for building a focused life. It's a simple two-letter word, no. And we're going to discover how it's not a sign of negativity at all, but really a declaration of personal power. You know the feeling, right? You're saying yes to every meeting, every little request, every ping and notification. You feel incredibly busy, you're always doing something, but when you look back at your day or your week, you realize you haven't actually made any real progress on what truly matters to you. It feels like you're just drowning. Now, what's so interesting here is that the solution isn't to just add more stuff to your plate or to optimize harder or to find some new productivity hack. The problem isn't a lack of effort on your part, it's a lack of refusal. So, to really get why saying no is so darn hard, we first have to understand the invisible prison that a lot of us are living in. Let's call it the performance trap. This philosopher, Byung-Chul Han, he gave this whole thing a name. He calls it the society of performance. His argument is that we've moved past an old-school society of discipline, and now we live in a world where we've become our own slave drivers. We're constantly pushing ourselves because we've bought into this belief that we can do it all, and therefore we should do it all. And this really shows a huge shift. I mean, think about it. In the past, oppression was external. You had a king or a boss telling you what you couldn't do. But today, the oppression is internal. The whole world is shouting, yes, you can do anything. And while that sounds like freedom, it actually creates this kind of tyranny of the self, where any failure just feels like a deep personal flaw. And here's what's really crucial to get. Even our attempts to rest have been hijacked by this mindset. That self-care weekend you planned, a lot of the time it just becomes a pit stop to refuel the engine. It's not a real moment to question the race itself. We're just getting ourselves patched up and ready to perform again on Monday. But there is a way out. It requires us to adopt a totally new identity, the selective rebel. Let's dig into how this way of being builds a completely new kind of power. Now, a selective rebel isn't just someone who goes around saying no to everything. No, they're a strategist. They get that every single yes to something trivial is also an unspoken no to something important. For them, saying no becomes a powerful tool to protect their focus and really to declare sovereignty over their own life. And please don't think this is a small thing. It's huge. In a culture that demands a yes to every single stimulus, the simple act of refusing a pointless meeting or a distracting request, well, that becomes a revolutionary act. It's your number one defense against the kind of existential burnout that comes from a life filled with meaningless activity. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we build up the defenses we need to become a selective rebel? Well, it all starts with building an internal fortress. You know, Machiavelli understood power. He knew that any territory you leave undefended is going to be conquered. The exact same thing is true for your mind and your time. If you don't actively govern them with some discipline, believe me, the world's demands will rush right in and occupy that space for you. And who are these invaders? Well, they're like these little mercenary armies that attack you every day. Every ping from your phone, every non-essential meeting you get pulled into, every single time you let someone else's agenda dictate your day, you are literally handing over the keys to your fortress. The strategy for this is something we can call a Machiavellian refusal. First, you set really rigid routines. For example, from 8 to 11 a.m., you do your deep work, period. That's it. This eliminates the need for willpower or decision-making in the moment because the routine has already decided for you. And then your default answer to anything that tries to creep into that routine becomes a simple, non-negotiable no. Now, this all sounds pretty simple on paper, but we both know it's incredibly hard in practice. And that's because the biggest obstacle isn't out there. It's inside. It's the inner dragon of fear. The The psychologist Carl Jung gave us a really useful idea for this. He talked about the persona, which is basically the social mask we all wear to be liked, to fit in, to be seen as a good, helpful person. And every single time we even think about saying no, we feel a direct threat to that mask. We're terrified we'll be rejected if we're not constantly agreeable. And that deep-seated fear of rejection, that is the dragon. It's that little voice inside that whispers that you're going to lose everything, respect, opportunities, maybe even friendships, if you stop performing for everyone else, if you dare to take off that mask. To be truly free, you have to face it head on. So, it's really important to understand what's at stake here. If you let that fear win, the result is what Jung called massification. It's where you just become another obedient cog in the machine, pretty much indistinguishable from everyone else. But if you face that dragon, the reward is individuation, that powerful, amazing process of becoming who you were actually meant to be. Okay, we've covered the what and the why. Let's finish up with the how. Here is your practical roadmap to reclaiming your sovereignty, and you can start today. Here are 3 simple, immediate actions you can take. First, cut one should. Find something you're only doing out of obligation and just drop it. Second, build one internal dike, just a single block of time, maybe only an hour, where you are completely unreachable. And finally, and this one is key, stop apologizing. State your boundary clearly without an excuse. True power isn't saying I can't because that implies you're unable. It's a calm declaration that you are not available. It shows you can't be manipulated. Because really, the alternative is to just keep on being a functional zombie, going through the motions, performing on cue, but not really living. The whole goal here is to move from being a servant to other people's demands to being the governor of your own life. This is the declaration you make to yourself. Think of it as a symbolic act, a way to seal the decision that you are taking back control. It's a choice to be the disciplined strategist of your own destiny, not just a pawn in someone else's game. And ultimately, that's what this all comes down to. Nobody is coming to save you from your overflowing inbox or your endless to-do list. That responsibility is yours and yours alone. So, the final question is a pretty simple one. You or them? Who's going to govern?